morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Sarah Gravett. I'm the Dean of the Faculty of Education at the University of Johannesburg. I'm also the resident Dean on this beautiful Soweto campus. It gives me great pleasure to welcome at this event Her Excellency the Minister of Education from Finland, Ms. Grahn-Laasonen, His Excellency Ambassador of Finland to South Africa, Mr. Kari Alanku, Professor Irene Rensburg, the Vice Chancellor and Principal of the University of Johannesburg, Dr. Whitfield Green, Chief Director for Teaching and Learning Development in the South African Department of Higher Education and Training, all the members of the Finnish delegation, and if you would allow me to say a special word of welcome to our distinguished visiting professor from the University of Helsinki, Professor Jari Lavonen. Jari. And then to you, members of the audience. It's indeed a privilege to have you here at our Soweto campus. But I will invite our Vice Chancellor, Professor Irene Rensburg, to do the official welcome. Thank you. Professor Rensburg.
Good morning. Doesn't sound very good, right? Good morning. I know for South Africans this is a bit chilly. For our Finnish guests and friends, all right. Yeah, I was saying that for us South Africans, this is a little bit cool. But the first thing I heard from Minister Laasonen was, "This is beautiful weather." You know, and I looked at my colleagues' faces, and it was, "Where's she from?" With respect. And of course, it made quite good sense. So allow me also then to take this opportunity to recognize Her Excellency the Minister of Education of Finland, Ms. Grahn-Laasonen. It's a very special privilege and a great honor for us to host you this morning, and we really appreciate the time that you took this morning in particular to really get to grips with the school, Funda UJabule. And we could see that you were having great fun, that you were in fact giving life to Funda UJabule, Fun, learn with joy. And we could see that you wanted to spend even more time with our young children, our young pupils this morning, and we were really inspired by your energy and by your engagement with them. And really just want to extend our sincere appreciation that you could find all of that time to spend with them, to go around the classes, to ask the questions that you have, and for our colleagues to be able to respond. So we extend a very warm word of welcome to you. Of course, to also recognize His Excellency the Ambassador, Alenko. It's again a very special privilege to welcome you to the University of Johannesburg. Allow me obviously to acknowledge the Executive Dean, our colleague and very good friend, Dr. Green, from the department, the Chief Director in the department, National Department of Education, responsible for teaching and learning. And of course to recognize all of the colleagues and friends from Finland who have come out in great numbers. It's a very special privilege and a great joy for us to extend our hearts to you in welcome. Our senior colleagues here at the University of Johannesburg, our academics, our students and our friends and colleagues from partner schools, please feel welcome. It's very difficult, I must concede, when I'm given 5 minutes to do a welcome, but I have to try my very best. I want to begin, Minister, by saying that we find ourselves here at the foothills of the Enoch-Sontonga Hills. It's a very special place, not only for us here in South Africa, but for Southern Africans and Africans more generally. And specifically, the South African national anthem has its roots just on the foothills, or on the top of these foothills, where many years ago Enoch-Sontonga wrote the national anthem, what became the national anthem of South Africa, an anthem that calls on the gods that we bow down to bless Africa, to bless South Africa, and to enable its people to build a far better society than they had inherited. And so our Soweto campus, therefore, is a very special location, a very special place for us. And so when we say Sanibonani in our local isiZulu language, it is not just hello, how are you? It is, in fact, a sound, a call from the depths of our hearts that says, I see you. So it's not just hello. It says, I see you. I see you in your totality. I see you body, mind, spirit. I see you in time, history, present, and future. And I know that as we meet together today, that our journeys will never, ever be the same again. And so when we greet you in that isiZulu manner, Sanibonani, that's what it means. It means that our journeys from here on will never be the same because of the impact and the influence you have introduced into our journeys. And so I extend, therefore, that welcome to you and our very best wishes to you as well. I often do this because I remind myself and I remind my colleagues that in the Nguni languages, or more broadly in Southern African culture and tradition, including the Khoi and the San tradition, so the much wider footprint of Southern African culture and tradition, welcome ranks, to say welcome, Sanibonani ranks amongst one of the most important moments in one's life journey. And there are, of course, others, such as the arrival of a child that has to be celebrated in a particular manner, the journey of a child, for example, a male child from childhood into adulthood, is equally a very important turning point. And so we have several of these celebratory moments. And so we do celebrate as well as Africans, and we do recognize the roles of those who have gone before us, our ancestors who have made us, and of course the journeys that lie ahead. But perhaps saying Sanibonani ranks amongst the most important of our rituals and traditions that reflect our worldview or our philosophy. I end off by again welcoming you to a very special campus. Of course, you will not all have had the opportunity to explore the footprint of the Soweto campus of the university. You may not have the time to do so. And so I simply want to make the point that the Soweto campus of the University of Johannesburg has always been conceived and has been given meaning and life to as a flagship of the University of Johannesburg. We were deeply committed to and continue that commitment to ensuring that the beautiful people of Soweto and more broadly of Gauteng and South Africa will have a premier university in their township. That they don't have to go to the suburbs and the downtowns and uptowns of Johannesburg and of our cities across the length and breadth of our country. Because the people of Soweto were inspirational in forging the nation forward and making it possible for us to break through and break out of apartheid colonialism. And so we continue that journey of building here a fantastic campus. The research chairs that we host on this campus, inside our childhood education flagship initiative, is a small illustration and representation of our deep commitment, to advancing the cause of those who continue to be excluded and exploited in our nation. And so, for example, a full third of the students at UJ come from quintile 1 and quintile 2 schools, meaning schools that serve the poorest in our nation. And so if we're looking for a model university that embraces all, not only the elites, but embraces the marginalized and the exploited and the excluded, it is this university. And it is that which continues to inspire us as we nurture this wonderful Funda UJabule school that we have given life to on this campus. A fantastic research school, an amazing model school for our teachers to undertake their training, and of course a school that grapples with, as I put it to Minister Laasonen, that grapples with the extraordinary difficult burden of language. If there is one thing that is causing public schooling in South Africa to be as troubled as it is that elephant that is in the room. Our inability until now to have grasped and tackled that fundamental problem of the colonial language English being introduced only 5 years into the learning of the majority of our children. And so the absorption, the learning of science and technology, of maths, occurs in English only from grade 5 onwards. That can't continue. That must stop. And so here at this school, we make every effort to demonstrate the journey that our nation needs to go in tackling that elephant in the room. I don't think many of us appreciate that the manner in which we introduce language in our schools is the biggest obstacle to our schools and our universities flourishing. And so on that note, again, Sanibonani, and enjoy the seminar. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vice-Chancellor Rensburg. And please allow me also to acknowledge the very important role that you have played, not only in establishing the University of Johannesburg, but also for supporting this vision of establishing the Funda UJabule School at this campus. Without your support, none of this would have been possible. Thank you very much. It also gives me great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Whitfield Green. Now, Dr. Whitfield Green is the Chief Director for Teaching and Learning Development in the Department of Higher Education and Training, but is also a very good friend of teacher education in this country, and has also been an unwavering supporter of the work that we have been doing here at our Soweto campus. So, Dr. Green, it's always for us a privilege to have you with us. And he will make some introductory remarks.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kravitz, especially for the invitation to say a few words, I think, at this very important event. I want to also record my thanks specifically to Professor Rensburg for the strong support he has provided to UJ teacher education initiatives and the leadership that he has displayed in relation to supporting teacher education to move forward in the country. We heard his strong views on the language issue in education. And we can transfer from that the language issue in teacher education. And I think wise words that we need to take forward. The Department of Higher Education and Training warmly welcomes Her Excellency the Minister and the Finnish delegation to South Africa. We have had a number of engagements over the last 2 days, and it's really been enlightening to engage with the colleagues and to share views on a range of issues. Finnish education achievements are well known in South Africa and are much admired. And we look forward to learning a lot from you going forward, especially in this seminar. Teachers and teacher education quality are key contributors to the quality of education in the country. And Finland's emphasis on this is recognized as a key contributor to its education achievements. South Africa too has increasingly focused on the leverage that teachers and teacher education offers to improve our education systems. In recent years, we have had a massive focus on teacher education, but I focused largely on growing the size. In response to a dire shortage of teachers that we were experiencing in about 2006 to 2008. We have largely overcome that challenge and now are capable of producing many more teachers for the South African system. Our concerns are around quality. What about the quality of those teachers? And that really is where our focus needs to be in the next few years going forward. Not to say we've completely ignored it in the past, but we certainly have to shift our emphasis quite strongly as we move into the future. We have huge diversity across our teacher education system. We have experienced one example here at UJ. I want to say a flagship and a leader in the country, but we have different experiences that teacher education students have at the range of different universities in the country. And that is something we have to work collectively as a nation to address. Teacher education programs at universities across the country differ substantially in relation to the content that they cover, the competences that they develop, the time that they dedicate, the teachers that teach on those programs, and the practical experiences that students have as they engage in those programs. And it's something that collectively with the Dean's Forum and with a range of universities, we are working to address. We know that we're not attracting and producing enough able teachers to support learning in the early years. It's one of the reasons why we've been a strong supporter of the initiative here at the University of Johannesburg. If we can crack the early years learning challenge, I think we can crack the education challenge in the country. And we have to focus our attention on the early years. It is about attracting the best young minds to become teachers in the foundation phase that will assist us to reach this. And so we need a collective responsibility of society to encourage those who aspire to be teachers of children in the early years, and good teachers. Our new teacher graduates, by and large, struggle with the language complexities in our schools. Prof. Rensburg has articulated this excellently. They're inadequately prepared to deal with mother tongue instruction and to deal with the development of English. It's a dual challenge. If we say mother tongue instruction, we have a challenge in that area. The challenge of introducing English right from the start presents a further challenge. And we have to be able to take this forward. The research has shown that reading presents a specific difficulty. We are producing teachers out of our Bachelor of Education programs that are not able to teach children how to read. And that is a travesty, in my opinion. The Funda UJabule experience has highlighted the way forward in this regard. And I'm sure the colleagues that walked around the school this morning could see the massive advances that the young learners in this school have made in terms of their language development trajectory. We have to be able to take the learning from this school across the country. That's the challenge. The disjuncture between theory and practice in teacher education in the country is also a concern. So our universities have been charged with the accusation that they are producing theoretical teachers. Teachers who are actually coming out much stronger in content knowledge, but not able to transfer that knowledge into curricular knowledge in the school setting. Now, that's not the responsibility of universities alone. It's the responsibility of the education system collectively. If we have schools that are resistant to assisting universities to develop teachers, we're not going to be able to address the practice problem going forward. And we are seeing that. We are seeing schools refusing to take teacher education students, refusing to mentor those students, refusing to support them. We are shooting ourselves in the foot. Because at the end of the day, we won't get the teachers we need. And we have to address this issue. We are very positive that we are finding a way forward. South Africa has a unique way of dealing with its challenges, collectively. And we can see that happening in teacher education as well. Innovative practices have already started to emerge. We can see the example of the University of Johannesburg and the kind of innovative practices that are emerging here. I must acknowledge, Minister, the EU support that has been provided to the Department of Education, Higher Education and Training that has enabled the department to support the initiatives here at Funda UJabule. We have to acknowledge. And thank you very much for that. Another promising development in the country is the primary teacher education project, where we have every university involved in the country working collaboratively to review their programs in primary teacher education, to set more common standards across primary teacher education, to develop core curricula that the range of universities can use, to develop materials that can be used across the campuses in our country. And I think that's really a positive step going forward. So it's not something that policy is enforcing on the institutions, it's the institutions taking responsibility for addressing the issue collectively. That project has the main goal of addressing the mathematics and literacy challenge in primary school teacher education. And we have high hopes that we will succeed in that regard. So these are issues that South Africa is grappling with, but there are certainly issues that Finland has also grappled with and seems to have found a range of solutions to. It will be very useful to reflect in the seminar and going forward on some of the lessons that Finland is able to provide. Obviously, we can't translate from one context into another directly, but certainly we can be reflective of experiences in other contexts and the implications they may or may not have for a context like South Africa. One of the big concerns we have is teacher education leadership in the country. And the disparity that exists in that regard. So we have excellent examples of good teacher education leadership. We have good examples of teacher education leaders that are administrators rather than academic leaders. And we have good examples of teacher leaders in the country that are academics and can't deal with the administrative. So I think one of the big challenges we have to address going forward, and I want to leave us with this idea as something that we can possibly take forward as a collaboration, is how do we produce the next generation of teacher education leaders? When Sarki leaves in 4 years' time, who's the innovator that will take the University of Johannesburg forward? Likewise across the rest of the country. Do we allow that to happen automatically? Or do we prepare the next cohort? And I want to suggest that we need to think about this collectively as a system, and the possibility of actually putting in place a program that develops teacher education leaders in the academic leadership role and the administrative leadership role going forward, either at the PG DIP level, at the professional master's level, or at the professional doctorate level, and maybe in partnership with the Finns. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Green. Ladies and gentlemen, I've shared with Her Excellency this morning the very special relationship that we have with Finland, and specifically with the University of Helsinki. So when I think of Finland, I think very fondly of our time that we spent at the University of Helsinki, and the privilege that we also had to spend time in some of your schools. I will always remember one teacher when I asked her, if you can do anything else tomorrow, will you leave teaching? And she looked at me somewhat surprised and said, why would I leave teaching? It's the best job in the world. And that for me epitomizes what we've experienced in Finland, and particularly also the high regard that Finland holds of teachers. So it is therefore for us also very special to have you here, Your Excellency, and to listen to you talking about competent teachers as keys to our success, your success in education in Finland. Welcome again, Your Excellency, Ms. Sanni Grahn-Laasonen.
Dear friends, thank you. Thank you for your very beautiful words. And as you have been in Finland for several times, you know that it's indeed a beautiful weather here today. This is our summer. But we are very proud to have very snowy winters and so on. So you're very welcome to Finland. Visit Finland sometimes. And I also want to thank you for the moment, the tour that we had in your school. It's always a great joy to meet the children. The children are very same, like kids are the very same in all around the world. And they have a joy in their eyes and curiosity. And it's our job as adults to make sure that they get high quality education and they can fulfill their dreams and build a better future. It's a great privilege to be here today and have this opportunity to discuss high quality education with you, especially the role of competent teachers as the key to our success in the field of education in Finland. First, and I would like to thank you for organizing this event, and I want to thank you for the deep cooperation that there has already been between the Helsinki University and your university here. I believe that we all, both in Europe and in Africa, must base our future on well-educated citizens. The world is increasingly mastered and ruled by knowledge, expertise, and ability to constantly learn and create something new. We consider that it's important to provide all our citizens with equal learning opportunities. We have worked very hard on this, and in fact, for the past 15 years or so, student performance in Finland has been among the best in the world, and excellent learning outcomes have been achieved with just average expenditure. Most Finns consider that the high-quality comprehensive school education is one of our key achievements as a society, and we want to keep it that way also in the future. One of the success factors behind our high-performing students is highly educated teachers. And in Finland, as you mentioned, a beautiful example, being a teacher is a respected profession. If my daughter would someday say she wants to become a teacher, as a parent, I would be very proud of that. And I'm very grateful that I have this opportunity to share some issues on Finnish education and teacher training with you. You, as one of the leading universities for teacher training, have an important role in training the future teachers of your country. I'm happy to say that Finnish people highly appreciate and place great value on education. We're celebrating our 100 years of independence, and I think education has played a crucial role. role in our history. Education is seen as an efficient way to achieve good life and welfare. Finland's education system provides all pupils with equal opportunities for learning, irrespective of their gender, socioeconomic status, linguistic or cultural background, or the place where they come from, where they live. Education is free of charge at all levels, from pre-primary to upper secondary education, and even higher education is free also for other EU citizens. Free education does not encompass only free teaching, but also textbooks and other learning materials. For example, for art lessons are free, as are meals during school days. Education is seen as a public service and is therefore publicly funded. Furthermore, in order to maximize the potential of every individual, learning is extensively supported and tailored to meet pupils' individual needs. This means that if a pupil needs extra learning support, schools are also able to provide it also for free. As for the general education model, our system is very flexible. Children are not expected to make any binding decisions at an early stage. Instead, the road is left open all the way up to higher education, with no paths leading to a dead end. And I think this is one of the secrets why the vocational education in Finland is so attractive choice for our young people after the basic education. In concrete terms, this no dead ends means that a pupil may first complete professional qualification at the vocational institutions, and after that, if competent and motivated enough, he or she may continue studies at university and obtain even a doctoral degree. Finland is a small country with only 5.5 million inhabitants, and this fact has affected our vision, which holds that we cannot afford leaving anyone without a proper education. Year after year, Finnish 15-year-olds are ranked among the best in the world in proficiency in reading, mathematics, and science, and still mostly thanks to our highly competent teachers, there is no longer need for any extensive school inspection systems or centrally organized nationwide exams in comprehensive school education. So no standardized testing and no strict control. The only standardized national exam is taken at the end of general upper secondary education. Good learning results do not necessarily require continuous testing or competition between pupils. Our teacher training has ensured that teaching is seen as an academic profession that attracts excellent students. We get the best students to become teachers. All of our teachers hold a master's degree in education or sciences and have graduated from a university. Teacher training is one of the most popular programs at many universities, and only a limited number of applicants are admitted to the teacher training programs. Universities have therefore a chance to select the most suitable candidates. Finnish teacher training is based on research, which I see is very important. The key objective of teacher training is to provide teachers with research-based knowledge, skills, and methods which are necessary for developing teaching. Thus, teacher training combines theoretical knowledge with practical know-how. This is achieved through the supervised teaching practice taking place at the university schools all over the country. And we have Jari Lavonen, for example, and Kari Kumpulainen here, who can tell you more about this excellent model we have. But of course, we, like all other countries, have challenges that need to be addressed, such as growing disparities, economic challenges, and decreasing competencies of our students. One of our responses to the future needs has been the new national core curriculum for comprehensive school. It was adopted in the autumn 2016, and it both facilitates and enables new reforms in the comprehensive school education. Furthermore, the Ministry of Education and Culture has launched an action plan to modernize the comprehensive schools in Finland. And our aim is to constantly update the comprehensive school system so that it meets the needs of the future. We want to make Finland a country where the most inspiring learning and education takes place. To achieve these ambitious goals, knowledge and know-how of our teachers is very much needed. In briefly mention just a couple of the goals set in the action plan. First, the new comprehensive schools will be more learner-centered. We want our children to have an active role in learning. They will reinforce every student's learning and educational parity. The new comprehensive schools will also have collaborative school culture and an open atmosphere. This means a combination of interactive leadership and clear goals that have been set together. The introduction of the educational use of technology, digital materials and new learning environments will be facilitated through pedagogic peer training. Every Finnish teacher will be offered access to online learning. We have so-called tutor teacher model. The tutor teachers are now available in every Finnish school. Their task is to assist and support their colleagues in the educational use of technology. In other words, technology and digital resources play an important role in our education today, but only if they are used in a meaningful way and in a context where they provide added value to the learning and teaching. So not just digital devices, but also the pedagogy is very important. And it has to provide added value to learning. This ongoing reform of teacher training has been designed to get through the collaborative strategy work. It has been done together. And what does that mean in practice? It means that the work of the Finnish Teacher Education Forum, which I appointed last year, has been carried out in a broad cooperation with almost 100 representatives of teacher training providers. The teachers' unions, the municipalities and the student teachers, as well as various researchers, school principals and teachers, they've all been active in this process. And Mr. Grahn-Laasonen, you know very well, is the chair of this Teacher Education Forum, the National Teacher Education Forum, and may also share some experiences from that. In Finland, a lot of decision-making power has been delegated to the local level, which means that municipalities, which are in charge of organizing the education, have a central role in putting this action plan into practice, together with teachers, principals, and other stakeholders. As part of this work, we have also introduced new objectives for the Finnish teacher training. As a general principle, we want to educate teachers who are future-oriented and broad-based experts who create new pedagogical innovations and utilize new learning environments. Teachers constantly develop their own professional skills and their working community. Knowledge acquired during a pre-service teacher training is not enough to last throughout the teacher's career as their work and the world keep changing. Lifelong learning is becoming even more important in the future, also for teachers. Teachers must be able and willing to develop their competencies, and their knowledge base need to be broad indeed. And furthermore, teachers' work should be supported by an extensive network which can be utilized by teachers who seek help from others as well as to share and combine their competencies at the national and international level. The aim is that the pupils, students, and teachers develop their competencies together. At the same time, there is a strong focus on finding the particular strength of individuals and support them, and on the right to make individual choices. As Finland has a decentralized education system with a very strong local decision-making powers, it's important that the strategic leadership and management system of schools will be strengthened by developing the management training of principals. Thanks to the participatory model used during the preparation of this program, all teacher training units are currently taking actions together to implement the new contents of the program. In the capacity of the Minister of Education, I'm particularly pleased by the fact that the teacher training units in different Finnish universities around the country are now actively collaborating with each other. And I'm convinced that this cooperation between our universities and vocational teacher training units will raise the standards of the Finnish teacher training even higher. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and dear teachers, allow me to thank you for this wonderful opportunity to discuss education and teacher training with you today. I'm sure that we will agree that high-quality education is the basis for well-being of individuals and nations alike. Competent teachers really are the key persons in this respect, and we should invest in both their pre-service and in-service training. Let me conclude by saying that teachers' opportunities to work together, to network, and most important of all, to develop their professional skills are the keys to achieving better learning results. I'm very grateful for this meeting and wish to extend my warmest thanks to you and all the organizers. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, thank you once again for visiting us. We appreciate the time that you spent with us, but we also know that you have a very busy schedule and that you unfortunately must leave us now. So a big thank you to you once again. And I'm going to ask Professor Peterson and our Vice Chancellor to hand over some gifts. And then, Ambassador, we would also like to thank you for your involvement in putting all of this together for us. And we're really looking forward to the continued collaboration. So, ladies and gentlemen, if we could allow the Minister to leave, and we will continue with the program in a few minutes.
going to introduce the next panel. Do you have a... We were running a little bit over time with the minister, and she had to leave because she has a plane to catch to Cape Town. It was wonderful to see her, though, interacting. She's the only minister I've ever seen who got on her knees and hands with the kids in the grade R classroom. It's the first time I've ever seen that. So what we will do to accommodate the rest of the program is to shorten the time slightly with the permission of the panel. And I'd like to introduce the three panelists for the first panel who are going to speak on Finnish teacher education, on the Finnish teacher education system. So I'd like to welcome, in the order, Ms. Palojärvi, Dr. Hahanhilia, and Ms. Ha Panimi. So I will ask them to come up in time, each of them, give them an opportunity to speak, and we're going to shorten it somewhat so that there will be time for at least one question for each of the panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, and mostly distinguished teachers present. I will just continue by saying some words of Finnish education system as such and referring to teachers. My colleague will continue with teacher training and more detailed aspects. But in general, as our minister stated, Finland is doing quite well in international rankings concerning education. Today, and this is very difficult for a Finn, I don't know how many Finns you know, but we are known as being very moderate people, so it's very difficult to say that we are very good in something. But it seems to be that we are doing something right. Anyway, but it didn't come out of nowhere. So what I don't know, if you are aware of, is that still in early 60s, when I was born, Finland was one of the poorest countries in Europe. We are recovering from the Second World War. We were an agricultural country, and industrialization was just about to start. And it has been a very, very long way of being a country which is ranking on the top of the competitiveness in international surveys, in education, and whatever it takes in high technology. How did we do this? We did it coming from the country where we have hardly any natural resources. We have some forest, yes, and we have plenty of lakes, but it doesn't help you very much, does it? But we had a couple of million of human brains. And it was a decision, very determined decision, to invest on human development in those days. And now we are kind of enjoying the fruits of that. But it didn't come overnight, and it didn't come suddenly. And as our minister pointed out, that's the battle which will last forever. So it's never-ending story. So if we just stand back and be satisfied in the present world, in this very rapidly changing world, we will be lagging behind, and we need kind of a constant development of our education system. But just to provoke some discussion, I just want to highlight some phenomena of Finnish education system. So, and I'm often asked, what is the secret of Finnish education? I don't know if there is any secret, but if I have to appoint one secret of Finnish success in education, I would quote our ex-president Tarja Halonen, who always was also asked, how is Finland doing so well in education? What's the secret of Finnish success in the world? I said, okay, 3 reasons I can appoint. Teachers, teachers, and teachers. And I think that very well covers it. Because without teachers, whole education system will be like an empty shell. We can create, in administration where I come from, in the ministry, we can create structures and skeletons, but flesh and blood is made by teachers in the classroom. And in Finland, it has been a very, very long process for the administration to, let's say, let it go, to create trust, to say that, okay, we don't have to steer, we don't have to control so much, but we can educate and train excellent experts to the field, and then we can trust them. So this is basically, I know this is very weird concept, but it's part of the philosophy behind our education and education system in general. And if I would like you to remember 2 sentences of the Finnish education. That is, the first one is that we don't trust so much on steering, but we trust on learning. So as Minister said, we gave up the school inspectors, if I just give you some examples. We gave up the school inspectors in early 90s. There are no school inspection in Finland. We don't have any national standardized testing in Finland, in our compulsory basic education. But we are trusting that the teachers are able to assess the performance of the pupils. So that we don't have tests, it doesn't mean that we are not willing to promote learning. And also, we are having just core curricula nationwide. And we are leaving the finalizing of the curriculum to the schools, to the teachers, to the principals, and to the municipalities to give the local ingredients to the curricula. And another sentence I would like you to remember is that we are not believing that quality is directly linked to the quantity. In Finland, we have one of the shortest school days in the world. We have very little homework compared to very many other countries. Let's say that if we are looking Asian countries who are ranking very well in education surveys, that's a very big difference between Finland. But we believe that during the school day, if we concentrate on learning, we can do a lot. And we can do it a bit differently than just making students to sit behind their desks and listening to the teacher. But you can see and you will hear some examples of how we can break kind of the borders of the school day. And that is what our new core curricula is also very much encouraging, as the minister referred. I'm not going to speak very much about vocational education and training, but I really want to mention it because that's the other coin of the education system. In Finland, I know my colleague Jari Laukia will speak a bit more about vocational education and training and professional training, but it's very important to remember that also academic career is not for everybody, but we need skilled labor, we need skilled professionals in our society to be competitive and to have competitive economy. So in Finland, vocational education and training, we make a choice and streaming at the age of 15. About half of the 15-year school leavers, their first choice is vocational education and training. And we have it has been a very, very long way we have been doing before we are at this stage. But now we do, and we are very happy and very satisfied for that. So that was pretty much what I wanted to say. As Minister said, there are all the time ongoing reforms. We have reformed our higher education. Now we are reforming our vocational education and training, have just created new core curriculas, and we are now also revising the teacher training with Teacher Training Forum. is taking quite lead of that, and Jari Lavonen, who is collaborating with your school and with Johannesburg, is one of the very prominent persons in this reform as well. But thank you. That was my share. My colleagues will continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I was watching people's faces while you were talking, and probably what you explained with around the Finnish teacher education system is exactly the opposite of what we have here. It's completely centralized with much monitoring, etc. So hopefully there are lessons we can learn from Finland in this respect. If I could welcome our next speaker up to the stage, please.
Yes, thank you very much. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dr. Jari Laukia. I come from Haaga-Helia University of Applied Sciences there in Helsinki, Finland, and I'm a director of School of Vocational Teacher Education. We educate teachers for vocational schools and universities of applied sciences. And like Jaana Palojärvi mentioned, vocational education is also an important part of our education system. And maybe Finland is very famous for education, but I would like to inform you or that you remember that Finland is also a special country where both vocational education, practical education and academic education are both appreciated. And when I say vocational and use this concept of vocational, it means all education which educates workers for practical sectors, business, technology, transportation, tourism, hotel, nursing, whatsoever, agriculture. This concept vocational includes all those kind of education. It was more than 100 years ago, in 19th century, very famous Finnish philosopher Johann Wilhelm Snellman. He was also very interested in education. He wanted to develop education. And he said that academic education, academic knowledge, indeed brings new idea for the society. And it is important and it is necessary to have very qualified academic education. But if we really want to change the society, if we really want to make practical develop, for example, our business life and the society and the equality of the society, we need also practical skills and competencies. And I think it's a very good idea. But it took more than 100 years, also in Finland, unless we had a decent and good, well-organized vocational education, systematic vocational education, and that we had vocational education institution networks, which covered all the country. And during those days, in the end of 1950s, in the beginning of 1960s, we also developed a systematic teacher education for persons who were teaching there in vocational education sector. And the system was such that we enrolled students for this teacher pedagogical education from those persons who already had vocational wide qualification requirements for teachers who want to become teachers in vocational education sector, either vocational school, upper secondary level education, or University of Applied Science sector. In our University of Applied Sciences also teachers, they must have masters, but they must have also pedagogical education. So we concentrate also in University of Applied Sciences for learning and the quality of education. This education includes theoretical studies in pedagogy. It includes also vocational pedagogical studies. It includes teaching practice when teacher students, they are practicing how to behave, what kind of pedagogical methods to use, how to motivate students to learning, how to assess that students really are learning what they should learn, how to make cooperation with world of work. In our country, vocational institutions, however we call, they are something like school-based, but they work very closely, close cooperation with world of work. And in our vocational education, there is also on-the-job learning periods when students go to business life to learn the most current technical skills and competencies. Also, our education includes optional studies where teacher students, they may concentrate, for example, special needs pedagogy or information, how to use information technology in the area of education. Also, assessment is extremely important aspect in the area of education. So, but why did we establish this vocational teacher education? There were two reasons. We wanted to increase the quality of vocational education, and the second was that we wanted to increase the appreciation of vocational education. And we wanted to have educated teachers compared to basic education, where we already had educated teachers in the very beginning. Why is vocational education important? It is important for the economy. Education increases the gross domestic production. We have very clear scientific results for this. Education is important of assimilation of young students to the society. This is absolutely key element. Also, vocational education, together with general education, is important for societal equality. We must appreciate practical education and academic education. Also, vocational education educates good and decent citizens who are able to earn their own living, they have a future, and they have trust for the future. And also, vocational education is important to increase this entrepreneurship. Many of those persons, for example, in Finland, if we estimate what kind of background our private company owners have, most of them, they have vocational education. Some 35% of company owners, they have vocational education. But maybe we have some time for discussions, but this was my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Laukia. I think one of the things you've highlighted is an issue we're struggling with in this country, where vocational education is seen almost as a stepchild. It's not something you want to do. University education is seen as the most important thing, qualification, and it's probably why we have such a skill shortage in this country. So hopefully we can learn from the Finns in this regard as well. And could I then just ask, thank you for keeping to time, our last speaker to come up, please. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Marja Haapaniemi, and I'm a CEO of a company called Polar Partners. I'm also a teacher by my background, so and I might have to say that quite a radical and also a little bit critical one. Yesterday, when we were visiting a school, I was asked quite an interesting question by one of the teachers in the school. We were talking about the achievements of Finnish educational system and our curriculums and so on, and then she asked actually quite good question, and it was that if, in case, you have succeeded all the things that you have as a nation in education with the old curriculums, why do you keep changing them? And I was actually thinking for a while that, yeah, that's a good question. Why do we change something that is already good? And what I think is that in Finland, we do think a lot of future. And what will the world look like in 10 years? And based on that, and if you are starting to look into the future, you see a lot of things. And then you see the need to change also. To the constant changing and renewing things, I think we have a good drive in Finland. And I would like to mention a few megatrends that I think have been affecting a lot in our society and in the world lately even. So if my colleagues were talking about the basics of Finnish education and also different kind of paths that a young person can take in Finland, I would like to say a few things that where are the kids going? In what kind of world are they going after they leave the school? Because I think in a person's life, a school is rather a small part. And after that starts the other life, the working life and maybe a life for a family and so on. So for example, extreme longevity. So people are living longer nowadays than they were in the past. And how does that affect our education, the professions in the future, and where the world is going? What kind of work are we doing in the future when people are living longer? What kind of career paths does it set? And also, what kind of services are we needing in the future? Also, another megatrend, I would say that, for example, the rise of smart machines and systems. So, in the future, more and more, we can program the world. And we can plan different things. And there is a lot of technology that is not existing today, but will be existing in few years. And how can we educate our kids to understand different kind of technologies and, for example, coding? In the Finnish new curriculum, we had coding as a subject in school. And actually it is, I feel, one of the languages of the future. Like Finnish language or English language, you don't have to be professional in coding or making games, but you have to understand the language to be able to, for example, cooperate with people who are very good at it. Also, new media. One example in Finland is that we have a lot of young people that are having their own YouTube channels and so on nowadays, and I guess it's the same all over the world. Like we said, kids are pretty much the same everywhere. So one of the kids that has a YouTube channel in Finland is actually more followed than our national news. So people become media, and we are media all the time. We leave a trace somewhere. And how do we educate our kids into a world that is working like that? How are they being able to be in media responsibly, use it safely, but also create media, and they understand what it means? And there is a lot more megatrends also. Globally connected world. World is getting smaller every day. And how our attitudes are towards other people, other religions, other cultures, other customs. I think those kind of skills of being adaptive, being open-minded are very, very important for us as teachers to acknowledge ourselves, but also things to discuss with the kids in the lessons. So what I would like to end with is that instead of thinking about so much academically, even though I'm now in university talking, so I think education and good education is not just academic mathematics, languages, chemistry, something. It's skills for life, for the future, for the afterlife of school. And by having those skills around every day in the lessons, and then think about a skill, and then your, for example, subject you're teaching, I think it should go in that way around. Not teaching the subject first, and then maybe some skill in there. Okay, that's for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our speakers. Now, I'm going to have to ask you to just, to beg your indulgence and ask you, I'm sure there's lots of questions. If you could just write your questions down and park them for later on. Unfortunately, the Finnish delegation has to leave very soon, and we would like to give the next panel the opportunity to talk, and then we'll keep the questions for thereafter, and both Professor Jari Lavonen and Dr. Jari Laukia will be available after that to take the questions. So I really apologize for that, but if we could ask the next panel to please come up to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We move directly into our next panel. My name is Francois Nordia. I'm one of the lecturers in the Department of Childhood Education here on the Soweto campus. And the focus of this session is on STEAM education. Now, I know not all of us work within the field of STEAM, so just a quick definition. STEAM is an acronym for the integrated teaching or studies of science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics. So now that you know what we will be talking about, let me introduce you to our speakers. Firstly, from the University of Helsinki, we've got Professor Jari Lavonen. From Finno School, Ms. Pia Loom. And then from the Ministry of Education in Finland, Mr. Jouni Kangasniemi. I truly hope I didn't butcher that too much. I'm going to ask our first speaker to address the audience, and then thereafter we will move on with the panel. Thank you very much, Professor.
So, dear friends, it's my great honor and pleasure to be here again. I think it's my 6th time here in Soweto and in this UJabule school. I always enjoy the people and the warm weather and everything, nice food. Okay, in 3 minutes, STEAM education in Finland. So I would like to underline the idea that the big aims, the more precise objectives, then the practices and assessment are in line. So what already Maria Haapaniemi emphasized, so what we need in future, that was the crucial question when we were planning our current new framework curricula. In the very beginning, there is kind of outline, what are the key competencies for future. And then the objectives in each school subject, also in STEAM school subjects, are in line with that. So as Maria emphasized, we should ask what kind of thinking is important in future. At the university, we learn critical thinking. We are always very critical, arguing, asking evidence. But what we need more is creative way of thinking. And this is very crucial in STEAM education, design and making something. And in addition, we also need metacognitive thinking or learning to learn skills. we live older and we need to learn many new things during our life. Then we are asking what kind of working or learning we need in future. Collaboration is very important, inquiry orientation, problem solving. What are the tools? Of course, the digital tools, but also the literature is important. Our new framework emphasizes the literature, broad literature. What are the context? We are not living only in the local context, the global context is important. And I would like to also emphasize the attitude. We should trust ourselves. We should have high self-efficacy. We should think that these are the problems we are meeting, we are able to overcome. Positive self-concept are in. So they are the big aims in our curriculum. And then we come to the STEAM education objectives. We emphasize the practices the scientists, engineering are doing. Asking question, forming a question or problem, planning investigation or planning an artifact, collecting data, looking for evidence, arguing. They are the scientific and engineering practices. They are emphasized in the curriculum. They are more emphasized than the subject knowledge. Of course, the disciplinary core ideas, what is core in its discipline, that is emphasized. And also the cross-cutting concepts, how the subjects are connected to each other. And for example, the so-called phenomena-based approach is supporting this kind of connection of the important concept in the area of phenomena. So the implementation, so aims, objectives, implementation. It's important to emphasize that the student is in the center. He or she should be active in knowledge construction. The knowledge practices, asking questions, planning, doing, what the engineering are doing, what the scientists are doing. Collaboration and an artifact. Typically the learning is organized around an artifact. It could be a document, it could be a concept map, it could be a robot, a code, whatever. So we are doing something around an artifact. What we have made research on that kind of learning, collaboration, knowledge practices, building knowledge. We have emphasized the practices, and we have recognized that while students are engaging in those practices, they are really more engaged in learning of STEM subjects. Typically students, based on the huge data we have, more than 40,000 measurements in real classroom situations, typically students are engaged in 10 to 14% of the situations. But when they engage in those practices, it's 25, 30% of the situations they are engaged in learning. So learning is emphasized in our country, so engagement in learning is important. And then the assessment. Teacher-conducted assessment should be in line with that. Teachers are emphasizing those topics they have been doing with students in the classroom in the assessment. So that should be supportive for the learning. Very shortly, the STEAM education in Finland. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to call on our next speaker to address the audience. Thank you.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, and dear colleagues, I'm Pia Lume from Finnish School. My background is I have been for 15 years a class teacher and a subject teacher in Finland. And nowadays I offer the in-service training for teachers in Finland and in abroad. And hopefully sometimes here in South Africa. At the first I have to say to you, because I love so much music. So I was just crying in the beginning of this visiting. I think that this was the best part of this visiting was the singing there, the choir. And many, many greetings to your pupils of that. And it has been my pleasure to be on this journey to get to know more about your education in South Africa. This has been the first time here. Thanks for you. My presentation focuses on mathematical identity. So we speak about a research of education about mathematical self-concept. And you know, you have been in different school and you have had different teachers. And I wanted we little bit think about that how can we support our identity, mathematical identity as a teacher, and how we can support our thinking skills. That's Professor Laasonen a little bit speak about. It's also that kind of we have to emphasize in the future and now today. When I was a small kid, numbers and figures were fun for me. We set the 10 wooden sticks on the board with our neighbor children, and someone of us kicked the board, spreading the sticks around. One of us was the dog who collected the 10 sticks, set them back to board, and started searching all others of us from hiding places. I think you know that game. When I went to school at the age of 7, we got math books with a lot of numbers, and there was also the green and red apples. We count them together. We counted, the learning math was easy and fun with encouraging teacher for me. All 9 years we studied from blackboard, used only books and filled into notebooks. In high school I got a teacher who wanted to do all students excellent in math. I was not able to do it, and I was urged to choose the basic course in math. At the university in Helsinki, I was studying there as a class teacher. I was lucky to get a math lecturer who taught maths through discussion, experimentation, creative problem-solving skills training, and the mere answer was not valid, but it had to be justified by concrete models. I was really excited about math again. This wise pedagogue was able to make clear for all of us what the learner-based learning is all about. I began to understand that mathematical identity needs to be built by myself, but a good teacher can support and guide the learner's individual learning path and make maths versatile and interesting. In suppose there are many people in this room who have a positive understanding and mathematical identity of math as a subject. In this case, studying mathematics and science is a personally interesting thing, involving questioning, wondering, learning together, mistaking and sharing of one's expertise, utilizing expert critical interpretation of knowledge, and a big variety of other mathematical thinking skills. Learning can be defined as learning and practicing of own different learning skills as well as part of lifelong learning path. The Finnish national curriculum is in basic education emphasize transversal learning and broad learning. The emergence of values, attitudes, working skills, self-image, and self-knowledge, not just individual knowledge grains. In order to create mathematical thinking, the teacher should use concrete examples of everyday mathematics suitable for each age. Encourage pupils to set goals for themselves and evaluate their own skills and knowledge. And use also the self-evaluation and peer-to-peer evaluation. I'm now training a teacher with whom I want to share the best practices and thus develop the success-specific skills and pedagogical skills. 2 weeks ago, we organized a training session with the Finland Science Education Center on functional mathematics and pupils' involvement. We used Lego, scales, robots, sticks, balls, bottles, pencils, papers, and we concretized with the teachers how mathematical problems of child's everyday life can develop mathematical thinking skills. One group of teachers was solving, for example, how the impacts of the free Finnish school meals on students' well-being can be measured. Quite a big question. We noticed that we had to make a little research, for example, to combine figures, conclude, apply, evaluate, justify, open mathematical concept, question, measure, and form expression, etc. One teacher said after the workshop, I have to really change my mindset of mathematics. I have to give my students more opportunities to discuss math concepts. Use the right concepts. Find different solutions, share their skills, evaluate their own skills. I said that, why that? Haven't you done that all? Not so much. he answered, because I want to develop my teaching skills, because that they would not think that there is only one correct answer given by a teacher or textbook. As much as we can influence, I hope we can build a positive mathematical self-image and identity, as well as versatile learning skills to build the best future for our children in Finland, in South Africa. Kiala buha. Thank you. Dula habusi. I have learned 2 words in Soweto. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are witnessing some Finnish excellence and efficiency with the timekeeping. Thank you very much. I would like to call on our final speaker for the panel. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It's been a very intensive panels, and my task is to try to pull some of the strings together before we end. STEAM education, how is it promoted in Finland? As you've heard, the main document how we promote education and steer education in Finland is through national core curricula. In the old days, it was said that that was the safest place to deposit your $100 or €100 bill in between the sheets and then put it on your bookshelves because nobody never opened it. But today, it's more like a living document, and we see that as an important tool for the teachers, how to do the education. How we develop the national core curricula, it's done in very broad cooperation with teachers, students, parents, working life, civic organizations, just to name a few. And STEAM education is seen as an important part of in our society. It's dealt in 3 ways. As a subject, we have these mathematics, sciences, technologies. They are discussed what are the outcomes that we expect the schools to have in place when they educate our learners. Then the second place where the STEAM is involved is that we have these transversal learning themes inside the curricula. It's dealt in learning skills, having critical things, using multiliteracies, using technologies. They're not independent subjects, but themes that are discussed broadly in our education. And the third place, we've already heard also the concept of phenomena-based learning. That's something that we try to introduce in our system, that as a part of your study you select one topic, like it could be like water, it could be like environment, it could be whatever. But you let the learners to decide how to deal that question. And then they just fill in the different views to that. And we've noticed that STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, mathematics, are always involved in those project work. And if I just want to conclude, it's not the national core curricula that's steered, but it's also translated into local level so that it's all accepted by the teachers. It's developed, designed so that every teacher in the schools understand what is required for their part of the work. But again, very warm thanks for this opportunity, and I believe that we are almost or about the time to leave.
Thank you very, very much to the panel. If I can quickly summarize, when we look at South Africa in STEAM education, what doesn't really exist, we tend to teach in silos with science on the one side, mathematics on the other. Where the focus seems to me in Finland is that there should be integration by showing children the connectedness of what is in the real world. If we think about our grade 3s that are currently in the system, in 10 years from now, they will be finished with their education. I always ask myself, what will the world look like in 2027? How are we equipping the learners? Which skills are we aiding them in developing so that when they reach the real world, that it's not in little boxes for them, that they could see the real world and the connections in there, but more importantly, that they're not focused only on the content, but they know how to shape the future where we all will live in. Thank you very much for the efficiency and sticking to the time. I will now call on our next panel to please come onto the stage. Thank you very much.
Okay, you can tell me when you're ready. Let's just quickly ask them to help us. Where are they? Oh yeah, they are.
But the two are together on one file. Don't talk so long.
You ready, Anna? Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Laura Rajput. I'm an associate professor in the Department of Childhood Education here on the campus. And it is now my privilege to introduce you to two great people in education and in both their countries, and people specifically close to my heart in many, many roles that they have played in my life. Specifically, Professor Elizabeth Henning, that has the research chair, the National Research Chair here in Soweto, on the Soweto campus, and she is also part of the flagship program on our campus as she is director of the Center for Education Practice Research on the campus. And then Professor Lavonen, who I do not have to introduce again, who you've met now, and I would now ask them to do the closing for us and give us their last thoughts on today and on the ways forward. Thank you.
Okay, hello everybody. It's nice again to be here. So I'm very, very happy to introduce you shortly what we have done together with the wonderful people from the University of Johannesburg, Soweto campus. It has been about 5-year journey. I am sure we have both learned a lot. So it happened about exactly 5 years ago. People were visiting my office and also the teacher training school. Elizabeth and Nadine and Sarah come to Helsinki, and they were eager to familiarize how we are organizing teaching practice, how we are supporting student teachers to learn from practice, not just doing practice, but to learn how to teach, how to assess, how to plan, but also how to continuously learn, improve your teaching students' learning in the classroom. So we start collaboration. We recognize that is something we are both interested. We start collaboration. We organized common courses for teachers here in the teacher training school, teaching school for learning more about reflection, supervision. That was something in Finland we already know because we have had 40-year experiences of having teaching schools in our universities. So we were sharing our experiences. In the very beginning, we also decided to engage in research activities. So in this picture, the UJabule school is very familiar to you, and our Viikki teacher training school is on the left-hand side. They are just the buildings, but now I'm focusing more what's going on inside the buildings. We have had aims, of course, and objectives for teaching practice. Typically, in Finland, the teaching practice have been divided to two phases. The first phase is the introduction, and also student teachers become familiar how to teach, how to learn, how to support students to learn a specific school topics inside the school subjects. A little bit old-fashioned way, but anyway, starting from the little bit friendly way for the students. Here are the objectives for this teaching practice, for this first teaching practice in Helsinki and here in Soweto. There are very much common. So that it's very important that the student teachers recognize what are the students already, what they already know, what kind of conceptions and what kind of thinking they have in the field the teacher is aiming to teach, support students to learn. Also a broad view to the planning processes, implementation, assessment of student learning outcomes, and also assessment of teachers' own working. And collaboration, to do things together, plan together, implement together, co-teaching, and these kind of things are important. So we can see a lot of similarities in our aims. So what was coming out through this 5-year process? We designed a questionnaire. We designed also an interview protocol in order to understand what students really learn during the teaching practice. There were a lot of challenges in making a common questionnaire. We made the trials. We interviewed students how they interpret the questions, because the contexts are very different. The language we use is very different. In the very beginning, for example, the Grumpa Alpha, measuring how well the reliability of the questionnaire, how well it is measuring what we are aiming to measure, what kind of interpretations do. It was quite low. We have to renew the question. It was very hard work we have go through. I'm not going now through all the answers, and also there's information if there is statistically significant differences between the interpretation of our own learning. So in some questions, Finnish students learn more, but for example, knowledge about learning of specific concepts, the students here in South Africa learn more. So actually we are not able to say, are there differences? It looks there are not so much differences about the learning. So our feeling has been and is still that the transfer of Finnish-style teacher training school to the Soweto teaching school have been very successful. So at least the students are learning in a similar way, because the aims are quite similar. And in many areas, there are no differences how the students interpret their learning. For example, teaching classes with diverse learners, it's an important area. Instruction models and strategies, classroom communication and discourse, classroom management and discourse. They are what are mentioned in the Schulman's model belong to the general pedagogical knowledge. So that's why we were also interviewing. So there were about 100 students answering those questionnaires in Finland and in Soweto. But we were also interviewing. And the interviewing were telling us very interesting story. In big picture, the students were asked very broadly, could you please elaborate what you have learned during your teaching practice? So we find a lot of similarities with the students' stories, what they have learned. And I'm not reading those examples, but you have time to read and have a look for that. But learners' previous knowledge was equally emphasized in the answers, and also role of classroom communication, what is the meaning of that, was emphasized. In some level, the South African students, Soweto students, were more successful combining their stories to the theoretical point of views. They emphasized the learning theories, development theories in their answers, even better than Finnish students. They were also emphasizing certain areas of teacher knowledge more, and some of the Finnish students didn't emphasize at all. Generally, how school is organized, what is the school management type, and things like that. So we were thinking that, and are thinking that maybe it was really well implemented, the Finnish model, to South African context through different kind of contextualizing, through different kind of practicing and trial and errors, and we should say that this is very success story what we have done here. For us, it has been also very important. We have recognized some weaknesses in our systems through this kind of common collaboration. Really recognizing that there are still, even we have 40 years experience, challenges to combine theoretical topics and practical things. And what you have done even more successful here. So this kind of common journeys are really important in educational sciences from the point of view of research, from the point of view of development of teacher education and our personal growth. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call upon Professor Hennen to come and give us her closing remarks. Thank you.
Dear Professor Gravett and Dr. Green and everybody else who's still around, all protocol observed, are you happy? We are very, very thankful that Jari was here today, because Jari said something that we didn't expect. Did you think, for one, you have do you hear me okay? Live streaming. Oh, we're live streaming. Okay, let me live stream. So sorry, live stream. I am very glad that he was here, because we are so used to, in South Africa, specifically in education, nationally, to say we're not good. And of course we're struggling. But here we learned something that says, yes, people all over the world can and are the same, can do the same and are the same. Our students could, our staff could, our dean, our HOD, our school principal, our teachers could do this in a different way, but as Jari said, somewhat better even in some ways. So I'm not going to respond as an academic only to say this research was such an eye-opener, to investigate on a very small grain level, very deeply into young people in our country, 80% of whom come from really difficult conditions for learning, can grow in a program that is only 4 years old. I mean, that is only 4 years long. The school is nearly 8 years old. That they can learn so much about what you do in practice, how you go about doing it. Could we have done this on our own? Who in this world can work without collaboration? Maybe one big country out there across the Atlantic, but nobody else. We need our neighbors. We need our neighbors far away in the north to come with something that is different, that speaks to variation theory, to bring to us an idea that we could try to emulate. We struggled, our students struggled, the school struggled, the dean had many nightmares, I can tell you that. The new HOD a few years ago had even more nightmares. I never had a nightmare at all. Because, let me tell you why. Because I am trying at this stage of my life to be a good social scientist. I try to look for evidence, I try to look for detail, I try to snivel around on the ground to find out what is going on there with people on the ground in classrooms. What do they say? What do they do? How do they learn? But more than anything, the reason that I have never had a nightmare about this is because I've seen integration on a large scale. I've seen integration, and all of this comes from research. None of it comes from my fantasies, of which, of course, as an educationist, I have many. But the research that I have been involved in for the last few years on this campus has taught me that kids can, that teachers can, and that we need to be just much more open about the real challenges and about, in South Africa, as I'm sure you were many years ago in Finland. Finland also had many centuries of non-independence as a country. I think the thing that we need to address quite radically is what is best for all of us, but specifically for those young children who run around on these school grounds. As Professor Rensburg intimated this morning, we have to address that elephant in the room. And if you look around, you'll see the elephant is all around us. It's our history. How do we address our history, our broken history of education and of a nation? By looking back, by being now, or by looking forward? Research tells us to look ahead, like the Finns. Where will our children be in 10 years? Where will they be if they do not know the English terminology, syntax, sounds of the language of science, of the language of technology, the language of mathematics? And as one of my proud students, PhD students present here, is advocating for, the missing E in STEM. I know you all have put in the A, but we want to put the E back. Where is the opportunity for young children and their teachers to develop an engineering and design thinking mindset? So that's the type of research that makes me not have nightmares. Because if we tackle things as social scientists, as educational scientists, if we look for evidence, if we look for small work, small-scale work, medium-scale work, large-scale work, going to scale work, addressing our systemic problems, problems of which, as you know, there are very many. But if we do that and keep to science, keep to investigation, keep to validity, keep to reliability, keep to honesty, keeping to good Alpha Kronbachs forever, then I think we are on the right way. And this is why this university and this campus and this flagship gives me pleasurable sleep time at night. It is happening, research is happening. I cannot thank the University of Helsinki and Professor Jari Lavonen enough. I can try and say it kiitos. That is Finnish for thank you. I would also like him to say just to me again in Finnish, because if you're old, you don't remember new sounds. So while young people can, which is why we advocate that you should learn the language of maths very early, in the language that you will use to solve the problems. Why do you think our kids don't do word problems well? It's not because they can't do the maths. It's because the language confounds them. Yeah, we must talk. Professor Lavonen, what is the word for renewal of education? Just the word renewal. I'll try and listen.
In Finnish, uudistaa.
Kuulistaa.
Uudistaa, uudistaa.
Okay, if kuulistaa is translated, what does it mean? If it is translated, what does it mean? Kuulistaa.
Uudistaa. So renewal or make a big change.
Renewal. I was waiting. I was hoping you'd say that. Because I work also now with a guy who comes from a master's in engineering, I am very aware of renewal of energy. Kuulistaa. Whatever. That anybody in this room who is a South African and who is not worried about electricity supply, please stand up. Like we need renewable energy, and like we need to renew energy. Personally, I don't think we need the nuclear, but then I'm not a politician. If you renew it, you take what is already there and you transform it. So I like this term of renewal instead of reform. Let me quickly tell you why, and then I'll stop. I'm brought and born a Calvinist. That means that I grew up with the ideas of the Reformation and Martin Luther and John Calvin and so forth, and John Knox across the channel. And so I've always had the idea that reform means that you abolish something which isn't good, and then you put something in its place, and you put all those theorems on the doors of the Cathedral of Wittenberg. Und das geht nur nicht so. Renewal for me is what the 21st century is telling us. It is to change what is already there, to transform it, not to reform it. So I want to abolish in our research work this term reformation or reforming of education. I want to say renewal, getting the real energy, putting it in a different format, and getting it from the sun and into the hearts and minds of our kids, our university students, and our beloved Department of Basic Education. Here speaks a loyal South African. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now take some questions. I just want to, before we start, before we open the platform for you to ask questions, to please ask Dr. Jari Lukia if you could come to the front again to join the panel. And then if there's anyone that would like to ask some questions, if I could just get an assistant to help me with the microphone. Okay, so any questions? There in the back. And if you could just state who you're addressing the question to, or if it's to the panel in general.
Hello, my name is Tandega. I am an education researcher at the SABC. My question is generally to the Finnish delegation. I just wanted to know, South Africans are advocating for early childhood development. The minister is now wanting to introduce it until 3 years, actually. So starting at 3 years, our learners need to go to school. That's the advice, as early as possible. So early childhood development is that. And in Finland, I find that you actually enforce the sleeping and the playing, and you introduce the early childhood development at 7 years. What is the significance of that? Why do you apply that? Is that based on research that you did? My second question is the language of instruction. In South Africa, we're struggling with our African languages. Most of our schools are in English. Even when you go to university, English is all the way the universal language. In Finland, I would like to know in terms of what is the language of instruction and what informs that. Thank you.
So this question about school, starting the school, what is the year students should start the school? It's the question very often asked because in Europe there are only 3 countries where the kids are starting school when they are 7 years old. Finland is one of them. I think there's Slovak or Czech Republic and something else, third one. Typically students start 6, 5 or even 4-year-old school in Europe. So why in Finland among those 3 other countries? So there, in my understanding, I'm not a specialist in early childhood education. In my understandings, I have been familiarizing myself to that topic because it's often asked. So there are three reasons. The first one is very practical. Finland is by landscape quite big, but by population small. So there are a lot of empty places in our country. People are living far away from each other, at least in the countryside. And there is a long tradition that children go alone to the school. Mommy or father is not taking them. They are walking, biking, or skiing in the winter. So 7 years old kid is old enough to go alone to the school. In Finland, both mother and father are working. So that's a very practical reason, and this old tradition that they go just alone or together with other students. So 4-year-olds is not old enough. There is also another kind of philosophical or ethical or whatever. So the childhood is important, and childhood is for playing, gaming, doing things together. So it's not for formal education. From the point of view of brain research, we know that gaming, playing, doing by free will things, that's very supportive for the development of brains. If you are starting too early, formal type of education, that's not so supportive. The third reason is some longitudinal research. Especially in Sweden, they have a huge data banks of data of human beings, starting from the birth and until the person is dying. So the lot of data of humans from the whole lifespan. And the social scientists in Sweden have made many models, and there is evidence based on those huge data that those who are starting the official school a little bit older than those others, they are having better life, they get even more salary, they live longer. So if you start too early, this is an empirical data based, this conclusion is based on the empirical data. If it's too early, then the life is not so successful. So these are some speculative reasons, but maybe the old tradition practical reasons are the most important why we start so late. And in Finland, the mother tongue, we have 2 official languages, Finland and Sweden. It's very important to learn to use your mother tongue. It's not only for communication, but it's also for learning, according to Vygotskian ideas, the inner talk. Of course, the foreign languages are important, but there must be the balance between the mother tongue and foreign languages. We start also quite early, but the whole basic education, primary, secondary, it's organized in domestic languages, Finnish, Swedish. Would you like, Jari Koli, to add something for this language? Uh, well, that was the basics. In fact, we have a third official language there in northernmost of the country. We have also Sami language. We have some 20,000 Sami people living there, and they can have also lower level education, basic education in their own language, but not higher, not in upper secondary or university. In the area of vocational education, we have also Finnish-speaking institutions and Swedish-speaking institutions, and also in University of Upper Secondary, University of Applied Science level, we have Finnish-speaking universities and Finnish-speaking universities. However, for example, in Haaga-Helia, we also offer education in English, also in teacher training, but officially we are Finnish-speaking university.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If you can just put up your hands in the back there, please. And if you could start now from the front, but just so long to go to the back. And please remember to address it to someone specific.
I will be a future teacher in hopefully 2 years' time. And my question is, if I wanted to come to Finland to teach, what are the requirements for teaching in Finland?
If you would like to come to Finland and, for example, to some kind of vocational college or University of Applied Sciences, you should have accreditation from National Board of Education, and you should bring your degrees and documents, and they would give you accreditation if your education fulfills the requirements in our country, and also your work experience is suitable for the subject you are teaching. In the university sector, universities are more autonomous in enrolling their teachers, and in practice, universities very much decide if you have special skills and competencies. It depends on the university if they accept that you could come and teach as a university teacher.
Thank you.
Of course, it depends on institution. In vocational education sector, we have also education in English and degree programs. And if sometimes it might be possible that, and we have teachers in our country, unfortunately, who do not very well speak Finnish. But of course, most of our teachers, they must have also Finnish or Swedish speaking skills.
Thank you. We'll now take 3 questions, and then after the 3 questions have been asked, we'll ask the panel to answer. So if we can start in the back, and if you can just put up your hands if you want more.
Thank you very much. My name is Deboho Zikadi. I am a mathematics teacher. I was just intrigued by the presentation of Jana Paloyari on the trust model that schools do not have supervisors, if I got that right, and that there are no national assessments. How long did it take to develop that culture where you can believe that teachers and schools or districts don't need to be supervised? Because I'm just worried in terms of that model, how do you mitigate against gaps of teaching outcomes when students or learners leave the schooling system? How do you ensure that there is an equalization of the quality of that learner when they get to varsity? how do you measure their readiness? So basically, that's how what made me curious. Are there certifications, and how do you issue that if there's no national assessment? So what challenges did you encounter in developing this model, and how did you overcome those challenges? Thanks.
Thank you. Can we get another question?
Good, I think it's still morning. My name is Michelle Kumalo, so I'm a first year student. And during our practicals, I've realized that our learners are actually being taught in their home language. But my concern is with most of our schools, I'm not sure if it's been implemented where they still continue to be taught in their home languages throughout primary and into high school. So I wanted to know, in regards to the language of instruction in Finnish, in Finland, do you guys teach the children in their home languages throughout until they get to tertiary level? Or how do you actually approach the change from home language into English? Because that's my thing. Our learners are taught in their home languages from grade 1 until grade 3. And then once they get to the higher, like your intermediate phase and high school, now they're forced to actually learn these subjects in English. Thank you.
Thank you. And can we get a third question? Here, over here, quickly, please.
My name is, can I go? Okay. Good afternoon, everybody.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. While you're formulating your question, can Professor Henning just say something, please?
Yeah, just for clarification, also for the first year student, the Dean asked me to just remind this. This school is a specific school which follows a specific language of instruction model, which was originally agreed with the Gauteng Department of Education, which means that children are slowly introduced to English from the beginning, and in grade 1 they specifically start learning mathematics only or mostly through medium of English. But then I want to just also note that we must remember our world is very far away from other worlds. In Finland, the national language is Finnish. And how many, 6% of the people use Swedish, something? So more than 90% of people are born in Finnish, learn in Finnish, work in Finnish, and learn English and other European and other languages as additional languages. So there our system differs very, very much. There's no switch from Finnish to English. I think the Finnish country would go into a very big revolt if that would happen. Because Britain has exited, so what is this now?
Okay, can we get the third question and then we'll address these questions? Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mafo. I'm a master's student of the University of Johannesburg and a field researcher in the area of science education. What is actually amazing in this is that I've learned a lot. For a very short time in my life, I've learned quite a lot. But then the question is this. I directed to the two professors, Professor Yari and Professor Yari. In scientific inquiry, there is the issue of assessment standards. You cannot say that we do not really incorporate assessment standards as a benchmark when it comes to doing science through inquiry. So then, what perplexes me is how is this accomplished in Finland? Because you'd find that our learners are supposed to do some kind of inquiry. In fact, our curriculum advocates for scientific inquiry to be enacted at all spheres of learning. The implementation, yes, is very questionable, but then how then do you know that this child has these skills if you do not have a benchmark standard for assessing the acquisition of those skills? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, about this first question about supervisors and quality assurance. I answer about or for vocational education institution and universities. In every, we have supervisors in schools and vocational institutions. But maybe what Jana Palajärvi mentioned or meant was that our teachers really, they are pretty autonomous in choosing their pedagogical methods, and supervisors, they trust their teachers. But this autonomy does not mean that teachers are not making cooperation. They have freedom, but they have also responsibilities. And in every vocational education institution, we have a quality assurance system, and we have certain system how do we estimate the quality of education, how students are proceeding in their studies, how they are finding a job when they have finished their studies, how economically institution is working, what is the quality of teachers, do they fulfill all qualification requirements, aspects like that. And to increase the quality of education, it definitely is cooperation between supervisors, directors and teachers. They must work together, and in the end, of course, supervisors are on response of running the school and also those results. We have this quality assurance system, which is because most of our institutions are public. There are no fees, and the government is giving financial support. If an institution is receiving good results, it is possible that they receive extra financial support. So this quality assurance system is more or less rewarding, not punishing. And it is motivating teachers, supervisors to make good results. But of course, this trust, that we trust our teachers, it is the question of education. They are specialists in their own field. For example, in vocational education sector, a supervisor cannot know everything about what is educated in this institution. There are teachers who are in response, and they are well educated. They are specialists. It is not possible. For example, I was working like a supervisor in a vocational institution. I have studied history, and I was a director in a technical college. We had engineering, and we had transportation, and we had textile industry, and I did not know anything about that. But I had to trust our teachers that they know. And I had to observe the results, how students are finishing their studies, are students proceeding, how do we make cooperation, and what kind of marks they do receive. And this assessment, yes, in Finland, especially in many schools, but we have moved from subject-based education to quality competence-based curriculums. And we have defined in those curriculums, those skills and competencies a student should receive. And we are assessing, we have skills demonstrations, for example, and of course we have tests, and we observe students, and also in vocational education sector, representative from business life, they observe students, how do they behave, and what kind of results they receive. And we are assessing the results of the students in the light of those requirements we have, which are mentioned in those competence-based curriculums. And this is how we are assessing definitely our students and the quality of education. But another Jari may continue.
On the way to Jari, I just wanted to say what I learned from my Finnish colleagues, our Finnish colleagues, is that it's not heavy accountability, it's light accountability.
Okay, thank you, Jari. So just some additions and some maybe other viewpoints from the point of view of primary and general secondary education. There are similarities between this vocational secondary education and general, but in primary and general secondary education, we do not have those supervisors. That is the one difference. But basically the same ideas are followed. And I think Linda Darling-Hammond from the Stanford University, she has very nicely described how we can have a trust culture. And there are 3 or 4 preconditions in order to have good trust in education. And the first one is that teachers, principals should be active in making the local curriculum, in making the local plans. This is supportive for having a common vision, common goals towards we are going. So everybody should share the same aims and also are willing to have the professional identity to follow those aims. Second, the teachers should be highly educated. They should have master level degree. They should have a researcher identity and this kind of very high level professional identity. In Finland, we have had during the last 40 years master level education for primary, secondary teachers. And third, there must be a culture of collaboration, and connecting to this, number 4 is the quality culture. So we are looking for good quality. The quality is very important in our system, even though we do not have inspectors and heavy testing. But there, as Jari described, we have the quality management or quality documents where we describe our quality procedures. There are different mechanisms. We are looking for feedback from the students and families. We are analyzing that feedback. There are development discussions between principal and teachers. There are many ways how to look for good quality. So this very shortly. There are preconditions for that. And of course in our system, without testing, there are challenges. But we have to balance. So for example, the selection to the vocational schools or selection for the high school, upper secondary schools, it is based on the final certificate from the lower secondary school, and the grades have been given by teachers, and there might be variation between the teacher grading. But not so bad, because we are also monitoring, we are not having national testing, but we have monitoring based on a representative sample. We are looking how well teachers are following the guidelines in the curriculum for final assessment. And there are not so huge differences between the teachers, so we can trust them. But there should be also monitoring mechanism. So this is a very complex question, and it takes more time to go through, but very shortly. And then assessment of science inquiry. In our national framework curriculum, there are also guidelines for final assessment. I mentioned that. There is the description of good performance and also the description what is the over that good and lower that good. And they are supporting for teachers to decide what is the performance now. And as Jari mentioned, the demonstration, observations, they are way how to decide what is the performance in inquiry processes of the students. Shortly.
We will now call upon our Executive Dean, Professor Gravett, to give us her closing remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura, and ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all of you who have attended today. I believe that you would agree with me that this was very informative and that we were really privileged to have our Finnish colleagues with us today. Again, it is also for us a huge privilege as the University of Johannesburg to have partners in Finland that we learn with and that we work with and that we do co-research. If you would allow me just maybe from my perspective to say what I have experienced in terms of teaching and teacher education in Finland and also related to our situation in South Africa. As was highlighted by Prof. Jari, trust is inherent to teaching and that teachers are being trusted. Coupled with that is highly, highly educated teachers. And I sometimes get very worried in this country when I hear people saying, teachers don't need theory. Teachers must implement in schools. Teachers must actually, and this is sometimes implicit in what is being said, be curriculum implementers. Now, if we want an education system in this country that will flourish, we need highly, highly competent teachers. And it is a fallacy that good theory does not inform teaching. Absolutely. That your best teachers are those who understand how theory and practice work together. And this is what we are trying to do also here at the University of Johannesburg. So I'm going to ask all of you to be ambassadors of we need teachers who deeply understand theory, who deeply understand child development, and who can make it a reality in the classroom. University of Johannesburg for putting all of this together. They are our partner also in education. So a big thank you to them all. Thank you.
Thank you to you all, and you are now welcome to join us for some lunch and further your conversations on this. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Prof. Jari. So cold.